In Warren County, New Jersey, within the United States, lies a road known as Shades of Death Road, a name that inherently evokes a sense of unease. This narrow, two-lane inland route, spanning approximately 12 kilometers, connects the communities of Liberty, Independence, and Alamucci. By day, the landscape might appear serene, with its constricted lanes flanked by dense tree canopies forming a natural archway, offering little to no shoulder. The road meanders alongside a national park and a forest, dotted with several bodies of water. Residences in the region are sparsely distributed, some even deeper within the forest's embrace, rendering the area incredibly solitary once night descends. After dusk, traffic is almost non-existent, save for a local resident hurrying homeward. For years, Highway 80, known as the Christopher Columbus Highway, has served most communities, leaving the older Shades of Death Road primarily to local inhabitants. It is along this path that tales defying logic are woven. In 1973, in a town near this area, a young couple bid farewell. This recently married pair, after a visit, was heading to their home in Roxbury to the north and west. Their host for the gathering insisted they take Route 80, a multi-lane highway, and strongly advised against the short route. The couple, surprised, inquired about such a shortcut, as the main road would take nearly an hour. The host reiterated their warning. The other route should not be used at night. With a smile in an era where superstition seemed less prevalent, the couple asked why. The response was emphatic. The inland route is cursed. Despite the warning, after farewells and a honk, the couple departed. Upon exiting the property, they reached a right turn. The young man asked his wife if this might be the short route. She, sensing a time-saving opportunity, affirmed. Joking about the cursed route, and with her affectionately cuddling in the bench seat of their 1970s car, they turned right, unknowingly venturing onto Shades of Death Road itself. They never reached Roxbury. The following day, concern grew among acquaintances, and the police were notified, initiating a search of the area. Shortly after midday, the automobile was discovered crashed into trees. Inside, the husband had perished, likely from the impact. However, the young woman was not in the vehicle. After a search of the surroundings, she was found wandering along a path in a delirious and unresponsive state. When a police officer approached to assist her, the woman screamed horribly, flailing her arms and repeating, "The ghosts, the ghosts, the ghosts," until she collapsed. She was transported to a hospital, where she recovered physically but was never truly the same. Her delusions persisted, leading her to a psychiatric hospital where she would die some time later, always convinced that ghosts had caused their tragedy. When attempts were made to inquire about the accident's details, she would only speak of the walking dead who had led them to their doom, becoming another victim of Shades of Death Road. Yet this is not the sole narrative. This road has long been renowned for its reputation as haunted and cursed. To comprehend this, one must journey back in time and analyze the events that have marked this location. The first significant settlements in the area, such as Alamucci, Independence, and Liberty, date back to the mid-19th century. However, long before, these lands were Lenape territory, inhabited by semi-nomadic Native Americans. Here were their lands, their lakes, their paths, and their cemeteries, where they honored their dead. Their lives unfolded in these landscapes until, around the 18th century, English colonists arrived, initiating a period of displacement, conflict, and death. The area already possessed a long history of strife. In 1850, part of this history would give rise to an epidemic. The colonists who settled in the area fell victim to a peculiar illness. For many, this was the result of a Lenape curse, as the indigenous people had been decimated, massacred, and expelled from their lands, their cemeteries desecrated. The people who came to inhabit these regions began to die. In reality, it was an epidemic of malaria, caused by mosquitoes proliferating in the swamps formed by the numerous lakes in the area. It is said that, amid the urgency and fear of the epidemic, Many bodies were not properly interred but instead cast into the lakes. Others were buried in the vicinity of Shades of Death Road. This tragic reality persisted until after 1850, when the problem of the swamps was identified. A drainage process was undertaken, and currently these fertile lands are used to cultivate rolled turf for gardens. Many people died there, precisely where the road now travels, but death had already marked this place long before. The Lenape, confronting the colonizers, died and were massacred. Their bodies, according to accounts, were thrown into the lakes, a disrespectful practice that disregarded their complex funerary rituals. Death had been present in this place even before the 1850 epidemic, which only exacerbated the situation. Just as communities settled near the swamps, others formed further away, such as Alamuchi, originally a Quaker commune. These pacifist religious groups, also known as the Friends, were skilled traders and laborers. In the mid-19th century, Alamuchi established trade links with many communities, and transit occurred precisely along the ancient Lenape path. The very route where the Lenape had fled, pursued by colonizers and meeting their demise in the lakes, became a commercial artery. Wagons laden with products and goods traversed it, initiating a new chapter, also marked by death. It was here that dead individuals began to appear with a distinctive mark, a neck wound that had caused their demise. They had fallen victim to robberies. A band of criminals, known as highwaymen, positioned themselves in this area, sometimes to the south, sometimes to the north, utilizing the dense vegetation to conceal themselves in the shadows of the trees. They would await the appearance of a wagon, assault it, steal everything possible, and, as a distinctive signature, take the lives of those traveling within, abandoning the bodies by the roadside. After some time, the inhabitants of the region, fed up with these crimes, organized a search, captured the delinquents, tortured them in the cruelest ways, and finally hanged them from the very trees where they had hidden. It is said that this is the origin of the name Shades of Death Road, derived from these individuals who appeared as shadows and brought death. It is difficult to ascertain if this is the true origin of the name or if the events are entirely factual. Concise data exists regarding the Lenape diaspora, the draining of the swamps, and the malaria epidemic, as well as the Quaker settlement, but many gaps persist in the historical account. Time continued its course, and another story emerged. A little further on, away from where the lake was drained, lies a place known as Jenny Jump Forest, a national park. Legend recounts that a young woman from the community, a Quaker and unarmed, was surprised with her family by a band of criminals, possibly renegade Lenape. The family was murdered, but Jenny managed to escape by running. In her Quaker attire and bonnet, she fled through the forest, terrified, knowing she was pursued. She continued running as the renegades surrounded her, aware of the horrible death that awaited her as revenge. Knowing this, she ran until she reached the edge of a ravine, a cliff, a precipice from which she leaped, finding death. Hence the name of the forest. This place, therefore, is considered full of specters, a site of death where so many things have occurred within merely 12 kilometers. Over time, this small road, which connected communities, began to register accidents, many of them fatal, such as the one narrated in 1973. Even assaults returned. At the current intersection of Highway 80, the Christopher Columbus Highway, with Shades of Death Road, there's a bridge beneath which the smaller road passes. Before the bridge's construction in 1930, a family was assaulted and murdered by criminals on this solitary and remote road. Among the dead were 2 children. With the advent of automobiles, strange tales of encounters with various types of ghosts began to surface. There is a particular area known as Ghost Lake, where it is said the bodies of the Lenape were thrown. People claim that when traveling near this place, especially at night and under moonlight, human silhouettes can be observed moving within the lake. It is not mist. They are forms that advance. Sometimes these figures emerge from the lake and venture onto the road, terrorizing drivers as they realize they are being surrounded by ghostly figures of ancient Lenape. But this is not the only location. There is a point on the road where a series of potholes recurrently appear. They are filled and reappear, for it is said that a family is buried there. It is known as the 12 Pothole Point, because legend has it that in that place, during the epidemic, 12 bodies were buried. That is why the ground seems to give way again and again. It is recounted that a child, the only one not laid beneath the road, appears at this site, searching for his family. Those who have seen him claim he suddenly crosses the road, a small gray, transparent figure through which one can see. When drivers attempt to run him over, they end up crashing into a tree. Another striking point is found in Jenny Jump Forest, where the ghost of the young woman is said to still be trying to flee her pursuers. Many people affirm that if one ventures into this forest at certain hours of the night, one can still encounter the girl fleeing before disappearing among the trees. The other point is the Highway 80 intersection, where the main road passes overhead. Legend says that if the car lights are turned off, the vehicle is stopped, and the horn is honked 3 times, the children who died in the assault can be seen. They are seen coming quickly, as if their parents had told them to hide and await their signal, with a fatal outcome for all. They continue to seek help, and the worst is that if one does not help them, it is said they will follow. There is another site known as Bear Lake. This place has a strange characteristic. Some campers have experienced terrifying events when attempting to camp nearby. At a certain hour of the night, when everything is calm and noise is minimal, sounds of wild animals begin to be heard, specifically a kind of feline growl. These are very loud sounds of wild felines, attributed to bobcats and a variant of wildcat inhabiting the region, small but aggressive and numerous. Just when one considers the appearance of these animals, amidst the meows, screams of horror are heard from people being attacked and calling for help. More than one camper has fired shots into the air or attempted to locate with flashlights, but there is nothing. The truth is that long ago this place was not called Bear Lake, but Cat Lake. In this area, there existed a colony of ferocious, wild cats that attacked careless people, causing their deaths and devouring their bodies, so that corpses were never found, only some bones. Over time, hunters eradicated that colony, but the ghosts of what occurred persist. The road also presents strange situations of shadows and fog figures that form suddenly. Many people prefer not to drive there at night. Some even assert that on certain cold dawns, chants and voices in an unknown dialect can be heard, believed to be the souls of the Lenape who never found rest because they were not buried but cast into a lake. Changing scenery in Argentina lies a very important route, Provincial Route number 1. It traverses La Pampa for nearly 500 kilometers. It is a 2-lane provincial highway, 1 lane for each direction, with a small loose material shoulder on the sides for emergencies. It is a quiet area, despite being a heavily trafficked road. There are stretches of 40, 50, or even 70 kilometers without any towns or human settlements. If one stops and looks at the sky, one will be surprised by a wonderful and incredibly clear firmament, free of pollution. However, this solitude is also a cause for concern. An accident or breakdown can take a long time to be detected. This area harbors a peculiar history, known as the legend of the Bride of Bajo de la Tigra, where a ghost appears. In 2019, the newspaper La Nueva published a press note by Fernando Quiroga, featuring an interview with a woman who had witnessed a phenomenon. This 29-year-old lawyer, with a small daughter, a stable professional life, and professional recognition, found herself in La Pampa. After resolving a matter, she decided to visit relatives in Alpachiri, very close by, so she took a Provincial Route number 1. It was daytime, around noon, a macabre detail. Everything was going well on that stretch towards Huarache, a quiet route, and she was driving happily. The event occurred in November 2017. The woman recounted feeling calm on the road, But suddenly, a few meters ahead, a woman appeared by the roadside, signaling for her to stop. The lawyer, aware of the dangers and as a matter of principle not picking up strangers, slowed down anticipating an obstacle, but did not stop. As she passed by, she could see the woman's face, dressed in dirty white, in a strange dress with loose hair and a peculiar gaze. What struck her most was the look of reproach, as if asking why she had not stopped to help her. She felt a sense of rejection and complaint. She continued driving, and looking in the rear-view mirror, the woman was no longer there, despite only a few seconds having passed. Nervous, she drove on, but barely a kilometer later, she noticed the same woman standing ahead. It was the same one, undoubtedly, and again she was signaling. The lawyer recalled that no other car had overtaken her, making it impossible for the woman to have gotten into another car and passed her. The situation was perplexing. It was the same person, with the same gestures. This time, she stopped. She could not explain why, however irrational or absurd it seemed. She stopped the car, opened the door, and got out. She began to walk almost unconsciously towards the woman standing by the roadside, in broad daylight, looking into the distance. The lawyer approached, asking if she was okay. At that instant, the woman turned her face, revealing it to be a corpse. Her mouth was decayed without lips, exposing her teeth, the gesture of a dead person. She could distinguish that this was not human. She stopped dead in her tracks, unsure whether to run, when the creature, turning, began to run towards her. The lawyer reacted by fleeing, not towards her car, but towards the fields. She left the car with the door open and the engine running, escaping into the field, feeling it pursue her. She heard close breathing. She ran, tripped, fell, injured a knee, got up, and kept running. She tripped again, fell again, and turning around there was nothing, only silence. In the distance, she saw her car stopped. No other vehicle was moving. She was alone, completely alone, in the midst of this wasteland which at that moment began to be inundated with a putrid smell, the smell of death. A smell she, by her profession, had encountered in morgues. In addition to the irritating smell, it was a very strange sensation. She got up, checked herself, had a knee injury, and was scraped. She began to walk and noticed a tree. According to her testimony, that tree had not been there when she started running. But what frightened her most was not just the tree, but that from it hung a corpse. The corpse of a woman dressed in a white suit. Undoubtedly, it was the same woman she had seen. She was hanging there, decomposing, with flies. Evidently, she had been dead for a long time. She stopped abruptly, took out her cell phone, and tried to call the police. As a lawyer, her reaction was logical. There was a body. She had to call the police. But there was no signal. This same rational thought led her to something simple. Take photographs and report it in the next town, sending the images. So she took several photographs of the scene. She crouched down to review them. But curiously, what should have been there did not appear. It was blurry, a flash, something strange. Upon looking up to take more photos, the corpse was no longer hanging. Suddenly, she realized the corpse was next to her. She clearly felt it touch her neck and, turning, saw the face of a corpse in front of her. She fainted. Some time later, another person stopped upon seeing a car with the door open and found the lawyer unconscious, with injured knees. There were no further consequences, but she gave her testimony of what she encountered. This is not the only testimony. Some time ago, a member of the public, who requested anonymity, shared a story their father experienced on that same route. In the 1980s, this gentleman was a long-distance truck driver. One day, he found himself on Provincial Route number 1. He had finished his work in one community and was heading to another location, which he would do at night. He had rested during the afternoon, so he got into his truck and began to drive. It was a calm night. His goal was to reach General San Martin, rest, refuel, and depart at dawn. He was driving when he suddenly observed a woman ahead. The description was very similar to the previous one. A girl dressed in white, waving her hand. He, being a good man, A believer and religious, accustomed to helping those he found in unfavorable conditions, did not hesitate. Perhaps an accident. He managed to see a car off the road, overturned in the field. As he approached, he turned on his hazard lights and braked, pulling over. He opened the door and observed the woman. He could not distinguish clearly, but he saw something moving and approaching. Through the passenger door, he saw someone approaching. At the top of his voice, he shouted, asking if she needed help or if she wanted a ride to San Martin, but there was no response. He only saw something there. So he took a flashlight, illuminated it, and horror began to set in. What he was seeing was someone's corpse, a putrefied face, something decayed with a mark. He started the engine, obviously, and the only thing he could think to say was, "Jesus and the Virgin protect me." He sped off. The door had been left open, but with the acceleration, it closed. He continued driving, wondering what he had seen. He didn't know what it was and decided to pray. Suddenly, he realized someone was next to him. He was not alone. Turning his eyes slightly, he distinguished the figure of that person. He did not want to turn around. He drove a little further, pulled the truck over, turned on his hazard lights, and got out. He knelt and began to pray, asking heaven for forgiveness for himself and for the soul of that person, imploring eternal rest for whoever was suffering. He continued in prayer for a while. When he finished, he got back into his truck, and there was nothing. He would arrive in San Martin very distressed. Once there, he spoke with an acquaintance about what he had just experienced, and they told him that it happened frequently. In this place there is a legend, and although legends are sometimes just that, in this case several witnesses assure that it is not just a legend. It is said that at the beginning of the century, a tragedy occurred. A young woman was deeply in love and had marriage plans. Her fiancé arrived one day with a beautiful white wedding dress. Everything was prepared, except for one detail. Her parents did not accept the relationship. They were immigrants and wanted her to marry someone of their origin. The girl's parents forbade the relationship and warned that if she persisted, they would take the young man's life. In her rebellion, the young woman was punished. One afternoon, she decided that if it wasn't with that man, it wouldn't be with anyone. She took her white dress, put it on, took a rope, and walked away from the town until she reached a tree, where she ended her life. Some suggest her name might have been Alba, but the certainty of her identity is unknown. Only the legend of the Bride of Bajo de la Tigra. Changing topic and setting, the story of The $6 Million Man, a 1970s television program known in Mexico as El Hombre Nuclear, is addressed. Steve Austin, portrayed by Lee Majors, was a bionic character with superhuman strength, long-range and infrared vision, and the ability to run very fast. The series, which ran for over 100 episodes across 5 seasons, curiously has a ghost story associated with a real place and event. In episode 20 of the 4th season, titled Carnival of Spies, part of the spy plot, and an evil scientist's scheme was filmed at an amusement park, Queens Park in California. This location, originally known as the Pike and opened in the early 20th century, closed in 1979, affected by competition from other parks. The episode was filmed in 1976, and part of it was shot in an attraction, The Dark Ride, a haunted house. In this game, visitors rode in small carts through a dark space filled with terrifying figures, wind effects, screams, and lights. Unlike other similar attractions, this one was prolonged and passed through several environments. When the film crew was preparing to shoot, they were warned that the place was haunted. At first, many technicians and staff laughed, thinking it was a haunted house. Of course it would be scary. But the warning referred to the presence of a real ghost. Several technicians at nightfall, when the park closed and maintenance work was carried out, had witnessed a human silhouette. A man who would appear, observe, advance, and then disappear through a wall. This occurred with the maintenance lights on and the rides off, without special effects. When the $6 Million Man crew began filming the episode in 1976, aired in 1977, they decided to do it at night so as not to interrupt the park's operation, which was already not at its best. Indeed, they not only saw the silhouette but also felt presences. Someone touching them, passing by them, knocking things over, or throwing objects at them without seeing anyone. The silhouette of a man appeared and disappeared. When the crew commented on what they were experiencing, the park staff confirmed the ghost's presence. The story does not end there. When everything was ready for the shoot, the set director, upon reviewing the set, noticed a very ugly figure. It was a dummy that looked like wax hanging from a rope. He found it too grotesque and violent for an adventure program aimed at children, so he asked for it to be taken down. The staff climbed a ladder, maneuvered to unhook it, and accidentally broke it. Upon picking up the part that had detached, the person ran out. It was a corpse. Indeed, it was the real body of a person, not a wax figure. The police were called, and it was confirmed to be a human body, dried and mummified. When the arm fell off, parts of the forearm bones and dried, fibrous muscle tissue could be seen. Parts of the ears and some fingers were missing, but the rest was there. The body was transported for examination. Initial findings revealed that the person had suffered a violent death, with a large caliber bullet impact to the chest. It was also discovered that the body had already been autopsied and reclosed. The question was, what was it doing in an amusement park as an ornament? The investigation continued. The body was re-examined, and it was determined that the man had advanced tuberculosis and numerous healed wounds, suggesting a violent life. The embalming process used arsenic, common in the early 20th century. Among the clothes, part of a cartridge, not the bullet, was found, corresponding to a weapon from the early 20th century. Upon detaching the jaw for positive identification through dental records, a small piece of paper was discovered, a ticket for a circus attraction from the 1930s or 1940s. Finally, the body was identified as that of Elmer McCurdy, a petty criminal who had attempted to rob a train, stealing only a few coins because the dynamite used to open the safe melted the silver. Later, he attempted to rob a train carrying a large amount of money, but made a mistake and robbed a passenger train, obtaining only $40 and several bottles of whiskey. McCurdy took refuge in a cabin, drinking the whiskey unaware that the police were following him. When they discovered him, he pulled out a weapon and began to shoot, but his intoxicated state prevented him from hitting anything. One of the police officers shot him with a rifle, taking his life. McCurdy's body was taken to the funeral home, where it was examined. The bullet was extracted, the cause of death was determined, and the advanced tuberculosis was discovered. He was embalmed with an arsenic solution, as there were no refrigerators, and placed in a coffin awaiting claim. No one came, only curious individuals. The funeral director conceived the idea of positioning him in a certain way and hiring a photographer. People came and took pictures with the deceased, even with hats and pistols, pretending to be cowboys. Time passed in this manner, and no one claimed him, but the attraction became famous. Until one day, two individuals posing as his brothers took the body, promising to take care of the funeral. In reality, they were part of a freak show and exhibited the body. Over time, the body dried out and became grotesque. It was then that they lent it to the Pike, which was about to open its haunted house game, the dark ride, asking for borrowed items for decoration. Unaware that it was a real corpse, they hung McCurdy's body as if he had been executed. This is how the hauntings began. It was not until the arrival of the $6 Million Man crew that the mystery could be resolved. After his identity was known and a positive match could be made with a historical photograph and a jaw reconstruction, it was determined to be Elmer McCurdy. Finally, he was given a Christian burial in 1977. His grave still exists, and since then there have been no more ghosts in that ride, thanks to the intervention that led to solving the enigma.